The first thing that really struck me about Marty Supreme wasn't the ping-pong tables, or even the flashy confidence Timothée Chalamet brings to the screen. It was the restless energy of the world around him. This film doesn't gently invite you into its story. It grabs you by the collar and drops you straight into 1950s New York, a place buzzing with ambition, desperation, and the feeling that if you don't move fast enough, someone else will steal your dream before you even get close to it. From the opening moments, you can sense that Marty Mouser isn't just chasing trophies or applause. He is chasing validation, identity, and a way out of a life that feels far too small for the fire burning inside him. Marty's daily existence is almost painfully ordinary on the surface. He works in his Uncle Murray's shoe shop, selling footwear to strangers who barely notice him, repeating the same routine day after day. Yet beneath that dull rhythm, there's another version of Marty fighting to breathe. After hours, he becomes someone else entirely, a professional table tennis player who treats the game like a battlefield. Every serve, every spin, every lightning-fast rally feels like proof that he is meant for more than measuring feet and stacking boxes. The film makes it clear early on that Marty doesn't see table tennis as a hobby or even a sport. To him, it's his passport to relevance in a country that barely cares about the game. What makes Marty so compelling is not just his talent, but his sheer audacity. He dreams big, unapologetically so, fixating on the British Open and the legendary champion Bela Kletsky as obstacles he must conquer to force America to pay attention. There's a charming arrogance in the way Marty talks about his future, pitching wild ideas like selling bright orange novelty ping-pong balls stamped with his own name. It's ridiculous, bold, and oddly endearing. He doesn't wait for permission to believe in himself. He assumes the world will eventually catch up. That confidence, however, constantly collides with reality, especially in the form of his Uncle Murray. Murray isn't a villain. He's cautious, tired, and deeply worried about Marty's unstable lifestyle and his fragile mother. When Marty demands money to fund his trip to London, the refusal cuts deep. It's not just about the cash, it's about being told, once again, to stay in his place. The tension between them quietly simmers, representing a larger generational clash between safety and ambition, responsibility and recklessness. Marty hears concern, but what he feels is betrayal. The turning point comes when Marty makes a decision that defines the rest of the film. He robs the shoe shop vault at gunpoint, threatening his co-worker Lloyd. It's a shocking moment, not because it feels out of character, but because it feels inevitable. The film doesn't justify the act, yet it makes you understand the desperation behind it. Marty isn't stealing out of greed. He's stealing out of fear. Fear that if he doesn't act now, his window will close forever. This moral fracture becomes the crack that everything else in his life begins to fall through. London represents a sharp contrast to New York, and Marty treats it like a stage built specifically for him. Unwilling to stay in the dull, communal player barracks, he checks himself into the Ritz, surrounding himself with luxury he hasn't earned but fully believes he deserves. This decision isn't just indulgence, it's performance. Marty wants to live the life of a champion before the world officially crowns him one. It's here that he meets Kay Stone, a former actress whose glamour has faded but whose allure hasn't. Their connection feels transactional at first, built on mutual fantasy. She sees youth and excitement, while Marty sees status and access. Through Kay, Marty meets her husband, Milton Rockwell, a wealthy and powerful man who views Marty with a mix of curiosity and amusement. Rockwell doesn't underestimate Marty's skill, but he also doesn't fully take him seriously. That subtle imbalance, being admired but not respected, follows Marty everywhere. On the table tennis court, though, none of that matters. Marty's semi-final match against Kletsky is electric, charged with symbolism. Kletsky isn't just a champion, he's a survivor, carrying the weight of history and tragedy with him. When Marty defeats him, it feels like the passing of a torch, even if the world isn't ready to acknowledge it yet. The final match brings Marty crashing back down, facing Koto Endo, a deaf Japanese player using a revolutionary sponge racket. Marty is outpaced and outmaneuvered. The loss isn't humiliating, but it is sobering. For the first time, Marty confronts the reality that raw confidence isn't always enough. Innovation, discipline, and adaptation matter just as much. This defeat subtly shifts Marty's internal narrative. He's still defiant, but a seed of doubt takes root. Instead of returning home humbled, Marty leans further into spectacle, touring internationally with Kletsky as a novelty act tied to the Harlem Globetrotters. It's entertaining, profitable, and completely hollow. He's performing excellence rather than achieving it, selling the image of greatness instead of the substance. When Rockwell offers him an exhibition match against Endo in Tokyo, the catch is devastating. Marty would be expected to throw the game for political and commercial reasons. Refusing the offer is one of Marty's rare moments of integrity, proving that, despite all his flaws, there are lines he won't cross. By the time Marty returns to New York, the illusion has shattered. He's arrested for the theft from the shoe shop, and although he escapes, the consequences of his choices are closing in fast. Reconnecting with his childhood friend Rachel Meisler brings both comfort and chaos. Their relationship is messy, rooted in shared history and unresolved longing, complicated further by her abusive marriage. When Marty learns Rachel is pregnant with his child, the weight of adulthood crashes down on him in a way no loss or arrest ever has. Living in a rundown hotel with his friend Wally, Marty learns he's been banned from the World Championship unless he pays a massive fine for fraudulently expensing his Ritz stay. It's almost poetic. The luxury he used to feel like a champion is now the reason he might never compete again. The bathtub collapsing through the floor and injuring mobster Ezra Mishkin pushes the story into darker, more chaotic territory, blending absurdity with genuine danger. Marty's life is no longer just unstable, it's spiraling. This first stretch of Marty Supreme paints a portrait of a man racing against time, constantly choosing momentum over morality. Marty is brilliant, selfish, charming, and reckless in equal measure. The film refuses to sanitize him, instead daring the audience to stay with someone who keeps making the wrong choices for the right reasons. By the end of this part, one thing is clear. Marty isn't just fighting opponents across a table. He is fighting the consequences of every gamble he has ever taken, and the real match is only just beginning. Marty's world doesn't slow down after that first reckless decision. In fact, it speeds up, like a ping-pong ball, bouncing faster and faster, until you can barely see it anymore. After robbing his uncle's shop, he doesn't feel like a criminal hiding in fear. He feels like a hero in his own story, a man who is finally taking control of his destiny. With cash stuffed into his coat and adrenaline still buzzing in his veins, he walks through New York as if the city itself has started applauding him. Neon lights reflect in his eyes, subway trains roar like victory music, and every passing face feels smaller than him. In his mind, this is not theft. This is sacrifice. This is what champions do when the world refuses to fund their dreams. The next thing we know, Marty is on a plane to London, sitting stiffly in a cramped seat, clutching his bag like it contains his soul. He's never traveled this far before. He watches clouds drift past the window and imagines himself standing on a podium, Americans finally chanting his name. In his fantasy, reporters beg him for interviews. Sponsors fight for his signature, and his mother cries tears of pride. Reality, of course, waits patiently to slap him in the face. When he arrives at the players' barracks, the place feels more like a prison than a hotel. Thin mattresses, cold walls, shared bathrooms, and the constant smell of sweat and disappointment. Other players seem used to it. Marty isn't. He looks around and thinks, this is not where legends sleep. So he leaves. Without hesitation, he walks straight into the Ritz, as if he belongs there. The marble floors shine, chandeliers sparkle, and staff members treat him like royalty because he acts like royalty. Confidence, for Marty, is a costume he wears perfectly. Inside this palace of wealth, he meets Keystone, a woman who looks like she stepped out of a different universe. She's glamorous, bored, and hungry for excitement. Marty gives her exactly that. He talks fast, jokes faster, and pretends he's already famous. Kay laughs, intrigued by this strange young man who smells of ambition and danger. Through Kay, Marty meets Milton Rockwell, her wealthy husband, a man who collects people the way others collect stamps. Rockwell sees Marty not as a person, but as an investment, a toy, a curiosity. A poor boy with talent is entertaining to rich men. Marty doesn't care. He's climbing, and he'll step on anyone to get higher. On the table tennis court, Marty finally feels honest. No lies, no tricks, no stories. Just him, a paddle, and a ball. He storms through matches, playing with aggression and desperation. When he faces Bela Kletsky in the semifinals, it feels like destiny. Kletsky is calm, experienced, and respected. Marty is chaos. Their match is brutal, a dance of speed and willpower. Against all odds, Marty wins. For a moment, he feels invincible. Then comes Koto Endo. Endo is quiet, deaf, focused. His movements are precise, his sponge racket strange and unfamiliar. Marty underestimates him. That mistake costs everything. In the final, Marty loses. Not just the match, but the story he built in his head. The crowd doesn't chant his name. Reporters move on. Dreams evaporate. Instead of glory, Marty gets a strange offer. Touring with Kletsky as part of a novelty act for the Harlem Globetrotters. To ping-pong players entertaining crowds between basketball tricks. It's humiliating, but it pays. Marty accepts because hunger is louder than pride. Rockwell later offers him something better, an exhibition match in Tokyo against Endo, a chance for redemption. But there's a catch. Marty would have to lose on purpose. Perform defeat for money and politics. For once in his life, Marty says no. Not because he's noble, but because losing on purpose feels worse than losing honestly. Back in New York, consequences finally arrive. Police catch up with the robbery. Marty is arrested. Fear flashes across his face, but only briefly. He escapes, runs, disappears like always. He finds comfort in Rachel Meisler, his childhood friend and secret lover. Rachel is trapped in a violent marriage, and Marty is her escape. Their relationship is messy, emotional, and built on lies. When she tells him she's pregnant, Marty feels both powerful and terrified. A child means responsibility. Responsibility is something he's never learned. Living in a broken-down hotel with his friend Wally, Marty discovers another disaster. He's been banned from the World Championship unless he pays a massive fine for fraud. The writs stay, the lies. Everything is catching up. He needs money. Fast. His bathtub collapses through the floor and injures Ezra Mishkin, a mobster. Instead of killing Marty, Ezra hires him to take his dog to a vet. Marty, always looking for shortcuts, decides to hustle people at a bowling alley instead. With Wally, he cheats, scams, and wins enough money to feel hopeful again. Until the victims chase them. A wild escape, a damaged taxi, a lost dog, another failure. Rockwell returns, having funded Kay's stage comeback. Marty sleeps with Kay again, believing charm can solve everything. He tries to pawn her necklace, only to discover it's fake. Even his fantasies are counterfeit. Rachel shows up with a black eye, claiming her husband beat her. Marty attacks Ira in rage. Later, he learns Rachel lied, manipulated him, used his emotions as currency. Hurt, furious, and exhausted, Marty leaves her. At Kay's play opening, Marty apologizes. For once, he's sincere. Kay sees through him but still helps him. In Central Park, she gives him a real necklace, something valuable enough to fix his problems. They're caught by police and bribe their way out. Romance turns into survival. Kay's career collapses. Critics destroy her. She breaks emotionally. Marty can't save her. He runs to Rockwell, begging for Tokyo again. Rockwell agrees, but only after humiliating him publicly. Marty accepts pride as a luxury he can't afford. Before leaving, he and Rachel are kidnapped by Ezra. Rachel is wounded. The money is fake. Another illusion shattered. Marty takes her to the hospital, then leaves for Japan. From this point in the story, Marty's life begins to feel less like a heroic sports journey, and more like a slow-motion collapse wrapped in charm, fast talk, and reckless ambition. And what makes this phase so fascinating is how the film refuses to paint him as either a villain or a victim, instead showing him as a man constantly running from his own consequences, while pretending he is chasing greatness. Because after returning to New York with bruised pride and empty pockets, he is immediately confronted by the reality he tried so hard to escape: a small shoe store, an overworked uncle, and a future that feels painfully ordinary compared to the glamorous fantasy he built in his head. And when he is arrested for stealing from Murray, it becomes clear that his desperation has crossed into self-destruction. Yet even then, Marty somehow slips away, not through bravery or clever planning, but through sheer chaos, reinforcing the idea that he survives more on luck than skill. And it is during this unstable period that he reconnects with Rachel, a relationship that carries deep emotional weight because she represents both comfort and danger, reminding him of who he once was, while pulling him further into moral compromise. As she reveals she is pregnant and trapped in an abusive marriage, instantly placing Marty in a position of responsibility he is completely unprepared for, and instead of rising to the moment, he reacts impulsively, offering promises he cannot keep and protection he does not know how to provide, which leads them to drift into cheap hotels and unstable plans, where dreams are spoken loudly, but never backed by action. And when Marty learns about the $1,500 fine from the International Table Tennis Association, the film subtly shifts into survival mode, turning every scene into a frantic scramble for money, dignity, and relevance. And this is where the story becomes almost absurd in its dark humor, as his bathtub collapses through the floor and injures mobster Ezra Mishkin, a moment that feels ridiculous on the surface, but symbolizes how Marty's life is literally falling apart beneath him. And instead of backing away from danger, he steps directly into it, accepting Mishkin's request to take care of his dog, only to misuse the opportunity for another quick hustle, teaming up with Wally to scam bowlers in New Jersey, a sequence filled with nervous energy, laughter, and underlying dread. Because every joke feels like it could be their last, and when the scam goes wrong, and they are chased and beaten with Wally's taxi destroyed, and the dog escaping, Marty loses not just money, but another piece of stability, showing how every shortcut costs him something real. And at the same time, his complicated relationship with Kay resurfaces, exposing another layer of his personality, the part that craves validation from powerful, wealthy people, even when he knows he is being used as entertainment. And his attempt to pawn her necklace, only to discover it is fake, becomes a quiet metaphor for his entire life at this point, chasing symbols of success that turn out to be empty. And when Rachel returns with injuries and emotional manipulation, pushing him into a violent confrontation with her husband, Marty once again confuses impulse with courage, believing that dramatic gestures equal love, even though they only deepen the chaos. And his stay with Dion further highlights his pattern of missed opportunities, as he learns that the novelty balls he once dreamed about were actually produced. But he failed to follow through, reinforcing the painful idea that he sabotages his own success more than anyone else ever could. And when he and Rachel steal Dion's car and try to exploit Mishkin's dog for money, only to be shot at and humiliated, the film makes it clear that their relationship has become a survival pact rather than a romance, built on lies, fear, and mutual desperation. And when Dion finally throws them out and discards the orange balls, it feels like the physical destruction of Marty's abandoned dreams, leaving him emotionally exposed for the first time. And Rachel's confession that she faked her injuries becomes the breaking point, forcing Marty to see that manipulation has replaced trust, leading him to walk away, not out of strength, but exhaustion. And this entire section works so powerfully, because it strips away the illusion that talent alone is enough, showing that without discipline, honesty, and emotional maturity, even extraordinary skill becomes meaningless. And by the end of this phase, Marty is no longer chasing trophies or fame. He is simply trying to survive the wreckage of his own decisions, setting the stage for the final act, where he must either confront himself or disappear completely into the role of a charming failure. As the story moves forward from the emotional wreckage Marty has created, the film slowly shifts into a quieter but more intense phase, where ambition is no longer fueled by excitement or fantasy, but by guilt, regret, and the fear of becoming irrelevant. And this transition feels natural, because by now, Marty is exhausted from running, lying, and hustling, even though he refuses to admit it out loud. And when he re-enters Kay's world through the opening night of her stage play, the atmosphere changes completely, replacing cheap hotel rooms and dusty bowling alleys with velvet curtains, champagne glasses, and forced smiles. Yet despite the glamorous surroundings, Marty feels more out of place than ever, like a man wearing someone else's life for a few hours. And his apology to Kay for trying to pawn her necklace becomes one of the rare moments where he speaks without calculation, revealing genuine shame rather than performance. And although Kay sees through his patterns, she chooses compassion over judgment, inviting him to meet her later in Central Park, a decision that reflects her own emotional loneliness beneath her polished exterior. And when they meet in the dark, quiet park, away from cameras and expectations, the film allows both characters to breathe, showing to people who have spent years pretending to be stronger than they are, finally admitting their vulnerability through small gestures and hesitant words. And Kay's decision to give Marty a valuable necklace to pay his fine and chase his dream again is not just financial support, but an emotional vote of confidence, a way of saying that she still believes in the version of him he has almost forgotten. And their brief intimacy feels less romantic and more desperate, as if both are clinging to the idea that love can temporarily erase failure. But reality interrupts once again when the police catch them and force Marty to use the necklace as a bribe. A moment that perfectly symbolizes how every gift, every opportunity, and every act of kindness in his life somehow turns into another transaction, another compromise, another loss. And when Kay offers him yet another necklace later, it feels like a final attempt to rescue him. Yet her own emotional breakdown, after receiving poor reviews for her play, shows that she is fighting her own invisible battles. And Marty, unable to comfort her properly, falls back into his instinctive response to crisis, seeking validation from Milton Rockwell, the man who represents power, money, and social acceptance. And when Marty begs him to revive the Tokyo exhibition match, he is essentially asking permission to matter again, willing to sacrifice pride for relevance. and Rockwell's cruel condition of public humiliation exposes the dark side of patronage, showing that support from powerful people often comes with psychological chains. Yet Marty accepts without hesitation, proving how deeply he fears being forgotten. And before he can even process this choice, chaos returns through Ezra Mishkin, who kidnaps Marty and Rachel after another failed attempt at deception. And this sequence feels like the physical manifestation of all the moral debt Marty has accumulated, finally demanding payment in blood and fear. And the forced journey to the farmhouse where Moses was found becomes a slow, terrifying confrontation with the consequences he has avoided for years. And when the shootout erupts, killing the farmer Mishkin and his men, the film strips away any remaining illusion of harmless hustling, showing that this lifestyle leads not to clever escapes but to graves and hospital beds. And Rachel's injury during the chaos brings the emotional cost into sharp focus, as Marty realizes that his recklessness is no longer hurting just himself. And the discovery that the stolen money is mostly worthless clippings delivers another brutal lesson, reinforcing the theme that shortcuts promise riches but deliver emptiness. And when Marty rushes Rachel to the hospital as she goes into premature labor, the tone shifts again into raw urgency, stripping away humor, bravado, and performance, leaving only fear and responsibility. And his decision to leave immediately afterward for Tokyo is not heartless but conflicted, representing his belief that success is the only way he can justify the pain he has caused, as if winning will somehow rewrite history. And in Japan, reality once again refuses to cooperate, as Marty learns he is too late for the championship, regardless of payment, reducing years of obsession to paperwork and deadlines. And when he loses the exhibition match as planned, allowing himself to be humiliated for someone else's narrative, he reaches his lowest emotional point, becoming a symbol rather than a person, a prop in a business arrangement. And Rockwell's intention to further degrade him pushes Marty into an unexpected moment of clarity, where anger, shame, and self-respect finally collide, leading him to expose the match as fake and demand a real contest, not for money or fame, but for personal truth. And Endo's acceptance of the challenge transforms the scene into a spiritual confrontation between discipline and desperation, humility and ego. And Marty's narrow victory feels less like triumph and more like redemption, proving to himself that he still possesses genuine skill beneath layers of manipulation and fear. And yet even this victory does not bring immediate reward, as Rockwell abandons him, forcing Marty to return home with U.S. Army soldiers, stripped of luxury and illusion, traveling among ordinary people who expect nothing from him. And this quiet journey becomes a form of emotional cleansing, preparing him for the most important reunion of his life. And when he finally reaches the hospital to see his mother and newborn son, the film reaches its emotional peak, as Marty confesses his love to Rachel without performance or bargaining, breaking down in tears that carry years of suppressed guilt, pride, and longing. And in this final emotional release, the story completes its transformation from a tale about winning tournaments to a meditation on accountability, growth, and self-forgiveness, showing that true victory is not measured by trophies, but by the courage to face one has passed honestly and choose a better future, even when no audience is watching. Marty Supreme's journey in New York had grown increasingly chaotic, as his ambitions for international recognition collided with the realities of his impulsive decisions. After escaping from the complications surrounding Rachel and Mishkin, Marty knew that his next steps needed careful planning. He had the valuable necklace from Kay safely tucked away, and the Tokyo exhibition match, looming ahead, provided the opportunity to finally prove his skills on a global stage. Marty spent hours each day practicing in makeshift tables set up in the cramped apartment he shared with Wally, fine-tuning his technique while simulating Endo's unique sponge racket style. Wally, though more relaxed and carefree, provided moral support and occasional coaching, often reminding Marty to keep his focus while also keeping their meals affordable and manageable. The apartment became a small, intense training ground, filled with bouncing balls, echoing paddles, and Marty's relentless determination. Word of Marty's upcoming exhibition in Tokyo began circulating in New York, drawing attention from journalists, fellow athletes, and curious spectators who were eager to witness the American table tennis prodigy take on the reigning champions abroad. Despite the excitement, Marty remained acutely aware of the challenges ahead, knowing that missteps in Japan could not only damage his career, but also his reputation with influential figures like Milton Rockwell. As the day of departure approached, Marty carefully organized his travel, ensuring that all documentation, fees, and arrangements were in place. He traveled lightly, carrying only essential items, including his carefully selected paddles, practice balls, and the strategies he had meticulously written down during his training sessions. His arrival in Tokyo was met with both admiration and scrutiny, with local enthusiasts eager to see how the flamboyant and often unpredictable American would perform. Marty was immediately confronted by the cultural and strategic differences in play, from the nuanced etiquette of Japanese sportsmanship to the intense focus and discipline exhibited by Koto Endo. The exhibition match began with an air of tense anticipation, the crowd buzzing with expectation, cameras flashing, and commentators analyzing every movement. Marty, recognizing the importance of pacing himself while also maintaining his natural flair, played with a mixture of daring spins, strategic placement, and calculated risk-taking. Endo's deceptive techniques, honed from years of rigorous training, and his unique depth perspective, presented unexpected challenges, forcing Marty to adjust constantly and think several moves ahead. The match was a spectacle of agility, precision, and psychological maneuvering, with Marty demonstrating not only his raw talent, but also a growing understanding of his opponent's strengths and weaknesses. Between rounds, Marty reflected on the journey that had brought him here, the small victories and humiliations in New York, the mishaps with Rachel and Michigan, the stolen moments with Kay, and the countless hours of unrelenting practice. These reflections provided both motivation and caution, reminding him that every action, both on and off the table, carried consequences that could ripple through his career. As the match reached its climax, Marty and Endo were closely matched, their rallies filled with tension, skill, and near-impossible shots that drew gasps from the audience. Marty's creativity and endurance began to outweigh Endo's initial advantage, and with a daring final maneuver, he secured a narrow victory that stunned the crowd and earned him genuine recognition. Following the match, Marty received praise from unexpected quarters, including local coaches, international fans, and even Rockwell, who begrudgingly admitted the young American had earned respect for his skill and tenacity. Marty, exhausted but exhilarated, understood that this triumph was not the conclusion of his challenges, but rather a pivotal milestone in a career defined by risk, ingenuity, and relentless pursuit of excellence. He took time to absorb the moment, connecting with fans, analyzing the game's lessons, and preparing mentally for what would follow, knowing that his return to New York and his complicated personal life awaited, but also that he had proved something vital, that determination, creativity, and audacity could bridge cultural divides and elevate an underdog to international acclaim. After the electrifying victory in Tokyo, Marty felt a surge of confidence that was both invigorating and unsettling. The win had placed him in the international spotlight, but it also brought with it new pressures, obligations, and the lingering complications of his personal life. Marty spent the first morning after the match reflecting on how far he had come from the cramped New York shoe shop, the stolen vault money, and chaotic misadventures with Rachel, Kay, and Michigan, to now standing as a celebrated competitor who had bested one of the most skilled players in the world. Despite his triumph, the reality of returning home weighed heavily on him. He knew that his mother awaited news of his safe arrival, that Rachel's pregnancy could no longer be ignored, and that Kay's influence in New York would continue to shape opportunities and expectations for him. Marty arranged for his travel back, using the remainder of Kay's gifted necklace to secure comfortable accommodations and smooth passage. The flight itself became a period of contemplation, allowing Marty to review his strategies, anticipate potential challenges back home, and mentally rehearse how he would handle interactions with both old friends and new admirers. On landing, New York greeted him with a mix of familiar chaos and the residual buzz from his Tokyo success. Friends, journalists, and local enthusiasts wanted to hear every detail of his international journey. Marty skillfully navigated interviews, photo sessions, and casual encounters, balancing charm with humility, yet always maintaining an undercurrent of sly humor that had become his trademark. His relationship with Rachel demanded urgent attention. He visited her in the hospital, ensuring her well-being, while processing the news of their impending parenthood. Marty's approach was a mixture of genuine concern and hesitant optimism, striving to be both supportive and decisive in a situation that had grown unexpectedly complex. Meanwhile, the opportunities with Milton Rockwell and the theater world beckoned, offering potential exhibitions, endorsements, and financial stability. Marty understood that every action would be scrutinized. His previous schemes and impulsive decisions had drawn criticism, and now the world was watching his response to these challenges. Rehearsals for a high-profile exhibition match arranged by Rockwell began almost immediately. Marty threw himself into preparation, incorporating lessons from his match against Endo, analyzing opponents' styles, and experimenting with innovative techniques that showcased both flair and precision. The training sessions, though intense, allowed Marty to regain a sense of control over his career, channeling his energy into tangible goals and building confidence that his skill and determination could carry him through the next stages. Outside the gym, Marty reconnected with familiar faces, while he provided comic relief and practical support. While Kay remained an enigmatic presence, her guidance and insight helping Marty navigate the complex intersections of fame, expectation, and personal ambition. These relationships, fraught with past mistakes and tentative trust, became central to Marty's ability to balance his public persona with his private responsibilities. As the day of the exhibition approached, Marty felt the convergence of his past, present, and future pressing on him. Each decision, each swing of the paddle, seemed imbued with weight and consequence. Spectators arrived in droves. Journalists filled the press boxes, and the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation for the performance of a young man whose life had been defined by audacity, ingenuity, and the relentless pursuit of excellence. Marty stepped onto the floor with a blend of nerves and resolve, his eyes scanning the crowd while his mind recalled the countless hours of practice and preparation. The match unfolded as a tense and dramatic display of skill, strategy, and showmanship, with Marty executing daring spins, counterattacks, and unpredictable plays that left both his opponent and the audience in awe. The exhilaration of competition merged with the satisfaction of growth, reminding Marty that success was not simply measured by victory but by the resilience, creativity, and adaptability he had cultivated along the way. After the match, as applause filled the venue, Marty allowed himself a brief moment of reflection. The journey from New York to Tokyo, the trials of personal entanglements, the mentorship of friends and allies, and the crucible of competition had forged him into a player in person, ready to embrace the next chapter of his extraordinary life. Marty returned to his New York apartment, the familiar creak of the floorboards and the dim glow of the streetlights through the window, offering a quiet contrast to the roaring crowds and flashing cameras of Tokyo. The city felt both smaller and larger at the same time, magnified by the attention he now received as a celebrated player, but softened by the comfort of routine he had long taken for granted. Rachel's recovery was progressing, and Marty spent long hours at the hospital, helping her navigate the physical and emotional toll of childbirth. The arrival of their son was a moment that crystallized Marty's sense of responsibility and purpose. Holding the baby for the first time, Marty experienced a profound mixture of awe, love, and determination to become the father he had never been sure he could be. Balancing fatherhood with the demands of his rapidly escalating career became an intricate dance. Marty juggled training sessions, media obligations, and exhibition matches with midnight feedings and diaper changes, often laughing at the absurdity of trying to maintain control over so many variables at once. Each day presented unexpected challenges, interviews that ran long, sponsors pressing for appearances, and fans eager for insights into the private life of a public figure. Amid this whirlwind, Marty discovered a growing sense of confidence in his ability to manage chaos. Drawing on lessons learned during his audacious stunts, risky hustles, and moments of crisis, both in New York and abroad, his connection with Kay deepened, not romantically, but as a mentor and confidant, offering strategic guidance for navigating the intersection of sports, celebrity, and business. While he remained a constant source of support, his humor and practical advice providing an essential counterbalance to the pressures Marty faced. Together, they refined techniques, studied rival players, and brainstormed unconventional strategies that could set Marty apart in upcoming tournaments. The exhibition matches arranged by Rockwell continued to draw attention, and Marty's reputation as both an unpredictable showman and a highly skilled competitor solidified. However, with visibility came scrutiny, and Marty had to contend with critics who questioned his ethics, his improvisational style, and the flashes of impulsivity that had characterized his early exploits. Marty approached these challenges with a combination of charm, honesty, and calculated risk, learning to harness attention as a tool rather than a threat. At home, he navigated the complexities of co-parenting with Rachel, negotiating boundaries, responsibilities, and emotional support in a manner that reflected both growth and the hard-won wisdom of his turbulent past. He also revisited old connections in the table tennis community, building alliances, nurturing rivalries, and ensuring that his network was as dynamic and resourceful as his own playing style. The duality of Marty's life, domestic stability and professional daring, created a tension that was both exhausting and exhilarating. Late nights found him poring over match footage, analyzing competitors' tendencies, and envisioning new approaches to technique. while mornings were filled with the laughter, cries, and discoveries of a newborn child. Through it all, Marty's resilience, ingenuity, and charm allowed him to navigate the unpredictable currents of fortune, fame, and family life, forging a path that was uniquely his own. Marty's life began to settle into a rhythm that was part chaos, part comfort. The international exhibition tour continued to demand his attention, with cities across Europe and North America hosting matches that drew enthusiastic crowds. Each venue presented new challenges, unfamiliar climates, varying equipment standards, and audiences with different expectations. Marty approached each match with the same combination of daring improvisation and calculated precision that had brought him to prominence, surprising both fans and rivals with inventive techniques and sudden, audacious spins. Despite the thrill of competition, his mind often drifted back to New York, to the apartment where Rachel and their son waited, and to the quiet moments that grounded him amidst the whirlwind of his public life. Marty's relationship with Rachel matured into one of deep, mutual respect and understanding. Their shared history, complicated by past indiscretions and reconciliations, now served as a foundation for partnership. They navigated parenting responsibilities with humor and creativity, finding ways to support each other while pursuing individual ambitions. Marty introduced his son to the rhythms of table tennis in small, playful ways, draping a tiny paddle across the boy's lap and gently guiding his hands, teaching patience, focus, and the joy of mastering his skill. Simultaneously, Marty expanded his professional horizons, negotiating with sponsors, attending press events, and collaborating with innovators to design specialized equipment and branded merchandise. These ventures tested his negotiation skills and business acumen, requiring him to balance assertiveness with diplomacy, creativity with practicality, while he continued to provide companionship and a sense of normalcy. His witty commentary and practical problem-solving helping Marty navigate situations that could easily spiral out of control. Keystone offered her mentorship in navigating the intricate social dynamics of the sport and celebrity world, helping Marty cultivate a public persona that complemented his natural charisma and flair. Challenges were inevitable. Rival players, unscrupulous promoters, and unforeseen mishaps tested his patience and adaptability. Yet each obstacle reinforced Marty's ability to think quickly, improvise, and maintain his composure under pressure. Behind the public persona, he grappled with fatigue, doubts, and the weight of expectation. Nights were often spent reflecting on decisions, considering the balance between ambition and integrity, and contemplating the legacy he hoped to leave for his son and the broader world of table tennis. Through triumphs and setbacks alike, Marty's core qualities, resilience, ingenuity, and unyielding determination remained intact. Each day, each match, each interaction contributed to the evolving narrative of his life, shaping a man who was at once a showman, competitor, and father. As the year progressed, opportunities for new tournaments, sponsorship deals, and media appearances multiplied, challenging Marty to continue refining his craft, balancing professional and personal demands, and embracing the unpredictability that had become a defining feature of his existence. The journey was not without its sacrifices, but the rewards a deepened understanding of himself, strengthened relationships, and a growing reputation in the international table tennis community. He underscored the profound fulfillment that came from pursuing passion with integrity, courage, and heart. Marty's path forward was illuminated by the lessons of his past, the value of boldness tempered by thoughtfulness, of loyalty balanced with ambition, and of joy discovered in both competition and the quiet, intimate moments of family life. Marty's schedule became increasingly intense as new invitations poured in from international tournaments and exhibition matches. He found himself traveling to cities he had only read about, experiencing the thrill of unfamiliar crowds and the unique energy of each locale. Every match demanded innovation, new playing surfaces, differing table dimensions, and opponents with unpredictable strategies kept him constantly adapting. In London, Marty faced competitors who had meticulously studied his every move, forcing him to employ feints and improvisation in ways that pushed the limits of his skill and creativity. Despite the rigorous schedule, he carved out moments for reflection and personal growth, often staying up late in hotel rooms, sketching new techniques, brainstorming product ideas, or jotting notes about interactions with fans and sponsors. Marty's connection with Rachel deepened with distance and time apart, reinforced by their commitment to co-parenting. Their son's letters and drawings, sent from New York, became cherished reminders of the personal life Marty fought to maintain amidst public scrutiny. While he remained a constant companion and confidant, navigating logistical challenges, managing travel complications, and offering the occasional sharp-tongued commentary that kept Marty grounded. Meanwhile, Kay Stone, leveraging her social acumen and experience, continued to guide Marty in managing public appearances and networking opportunities, helping him refine a persona that was at once charming, approachable, and strategically appealing to sponsors. Challenges arose in the form of competitive rivalries, press misinterpretations, and the occasional mishap in travel or equipment transport. Yet each obstacle reinforced Marty's resilience and adaptability. He learned to anticipate the unexpected, to maintain focus under pressure, and to turn setbacks into opportunities for creative problem-solving. Marty also began experimenting with new table tennis styles and techniques, inspired by the varied international players he encountered. The fusion of styles, combined with his natural improvisational talent, made his matches both entertaining and technically impressive, earning him acclaim and respect from players and audiences alike. Amid the frenetic pace, moments of quiet reflection became increasingly valuable. Marty considered the legacy he wanted to leave in the sport, not just as a champion, but as a figure who could inspire innovation, dedication, and passion in younger generations. The combination of competition, personal responsibility, and public expectation shaped Marty into a multifaceted figure: athlete, father, mentor, and showman. Each day reinforced lessons about integrity, perseverance, and the importance of balancing ambition with personal relationships. As the international circuit pressed onward, Marty's confidence and skill grew. But so too did his appreciation for the quieter, meaningful aspects of life: family, mentorship, and the enduring joy of mastering a craft he loved deeply, ensuring that his achievements resonated far beyond the competitive tables of the world. As Marty continued his journey across continents, he began to sense that his life was slowly shifting from survival mode into something more deliberate and purposeful. The frantic energy that once defined his movements was being replaced by a calmer, sharper focus, as if every experience, good or bad, had trained him to think several steps ahead. In crowded stadiums and quiet practice halls, he found himself studying not just his opponents, but also himself, noticing patterns in his reactions, moments where fear crept in, and times when confidence carried him forward. He started waking up earlier, stretching longer, practicing with greater intention, no longer playing simply to impress, but to master every subtle detail of the game. Interviews became more thoughtful, his words less impulsive and more reflective, revealing a man who had learned the cost of recklessness. Sponsors and organizers noticed this transformation, seeing in Marty not just a talented player but a dependable professional who could represent the sport with dignity. Yet behind the polished public image, Marty still carried emotional weight. Late at night, he often replayed memories of his past mistakes, the people he had hurt, the chances he had nearly destroyed. Instead of running from these thoughts, he confronted them, using them as motivation to remain honest with himself. His relationship with Rachel evolved into something deeper and more mature, built not on chaos or desperation, but on mutual respect and shared responsibility. Their conversations became calmer, filled with discussions about their son's future, education, and the values they hoped to pass on. Marty began saving money carefully, investing wisely, and planning for a life beyond competition, aware that fame and physical strength were temporary gifts. On the road, he started mentoring younger players, offering guidance that went beyond technique, warning them about shortcuts, temptations, and the emotional toll of constant pressure. These moments of mentorship gave him unexpected fulfillment, reminding him that his story could serve as a roadmap for others. Kay remained part of his world as a wise observer, sometimes distant, sometimes deeply supportive, reminding Marty of the importance of art, culture, and emotional expression outside sports. Wally, ever loyal, continued to act as both protector and critic, ensuring Marty never lost touch with his roots. As tournaments grew tougher, Marty faced opponents who were younger, faster, and more technologically trained, forcing him to adapt once again. Instead of feeling threatened, he welcomed the challenge, refining his strategies and blending experience with innovation. Losses no longer shattered him, they educated him. Victories no longer inflated his ego, they humbled him. Each match became a lesson in patience and perspective. Media narratives shifted from portraying him as a reckless prodigy to recognizing him as a resilient survivor who had earned every inch of success. Marty also began documenting his journey through journals and recordings, hoping one day to share the unfiltered truth of his struggles and growth. These private reflections helped him process fame without losing his humanity. As seasons passed, he noticed how differently he viewed the sport. once a desperate escape, now a meaningful craft that had shaped his character. He no longer feared retirement, because he knew his value extended beyond trophies. Instead, he focused on leaving behind a legacy rooted in honesty, discipline, and compassion. Through endless airports, unfamiliar hotels, and roaring crowds, Marty carried with him a quiet sense of gratitude for second chances, for family, for lessons learned the hard way. His life was no longer defined by impulsive ambition, but by conscious intention, proving that true victory was not found in medals, but in becoming someone worthy of his own respect. Marty found himself back in New York, the city feeling both familiar and strangely distant. The streets, crowded with bustling pedestrians and honking cars, reminded him of his childhood. Yet the weight of his recent experiences in London and the challenges of the table tennis world clung to him like a persistent shadow. Every step he took on the pavement seemed heavy, as if each one carried the echoes of every gamble, every stolen coin, and every deceitful scheme he had pulled. He walked past Murray's shoe shop, remembering how it had once been both a haven and a battleground. The thought of Lloyd in the vault still caused a flash of nervous adrenaline. Even now, he could feel the sting of betrayal, the complex tangle of family, loyalty, and self, all meshed together in a messy knot he had never learned to untangle. Inside his small apartment, Marty examined the orange novelty table tennis balls, now dulled from weeks of handling and neglect. He knew Dion and his father had produced them, but the potential deal had slipped from his grasp. His mind raced through the possibilities of using them to raise funds for his next tournament trip, but each idea seemed more desperate than the last. Marty's ingenuity was sharp, but he knew he had limits. He was constantly balancing his ambition with the chaos of his life. He recalled Wally's voice echoing in his memory. "You can hustle the world, Marty, but you can't hustle yourself out of trouble." The words had never been more true than now. Despite the setbacks, Marty's competitive spirit remained undimmed. He trained tirelessly at the small local table tennis club, where the rhythmic ping of balls against paddles created a hypnotic backdrop to his thoughts. Each match, each practice, honed his reflexes and sharpened his focus. Marty's body moved with the precision of a seasoned athlete, yet every muscle seemed burdened by the invisible weight of his recent escapades. He noticed the subtle changes in himself, a more cautious approach, a heightened awareness of opponents' tactics, and a growing understanding that his youthful recklessness was no longer sustainable. Every point won or lost was more than a measure of skill. It was a testament to his resilience and adaptability in a world that refused to play fair. Marty also felt the pull of personal entanglements. Rachel's presence lingered in his thoughts constantly, her situation complicated and emotionally charged. He reflected on the dangerous dynamics surrounding her, and despite her attempts to manipulate or test his patience, he could not ignore the bond they shared. Rachel's pregnancy added urgency to his decisions, grounding him in a responsibility he had often tried to avoid. Every choice he made now had consequences, not only for himself, but for those around him, creating a tension that drove him to meticulous planning, careful observation, and occasional bouts of reckless daring when circumstances demanded. The city outside buzzed with life, indifferent to his personal battles, yet it provided the stage on which he enacted them. One evening, while walking through the dimly lit streets, after another grueling practice session, Marty encountered Ezra Mishkin's men, who had been tracking him ever since the chaotic events involving Moses and the New Jersey escapade. The confrontation escalated quickly. Threats were exchanged, tempers flared, and a physical altercation ensued. Marty, ever resourceful, managed to escape, leveraging his knowledge of the streets, quick reflexes, and the unpredictable elements around him. He ducked into alleyways, climbed fences, and used the city itself as a tool to outmaneuver his pursuers. The adrenaline coursing through his veins reminded him why he loved the sport. The combination of skill, strategy, and the instinctive reactions that could make the difference between triumph and disaster. Through these challenges, Marty also sought allies. Wally remained steadfast, assisting him with transportation, planning, and moral support, even as the stakes grew higher. The taxi driver's unconventional methods often proved invaluable, from improvised distractions to creative ways of moving undetected through the city. Together, they combining Wally's street smarts with Marty's technical skill to navigate both the physical and social landscapes they encountered. Every small victory was hard-earned, and each setback was dissected and learned from. Their partnership, grounded in mutual respect and an understanding of the risks involved, became a cornerstone of Marty's ongoing survival and pursuit of excellence in table tennis. As the deadline approached for the next international tournament, Marty faced another crucial decision. The International Table Tennis Association had imposed a fine for his extravagant stay at the Ritz, a bureaucratic obstacle threatening his participation. Marty evaluated every possible method to raise the necessary funds, from hustling at local alleys to leveraging connections he had made abroad. The urgency of the situation required not just athletic skill but ingenuity, negotiation, and occasionally bending moral boundaries he would not have considered in his youth. Each option carried risk, each decision weighed on his conscience, yet his ambition and determination drove him forward. He understood that opportunities were fleeting, and hesitation could mean losing more than just a game. It could mean losing the chance to redefine his life. Marty's reflection on past mistakes, personal relationships, and professional goals revealed a growing awareness of his own limitations and strengths. He had matured, not simply through the passage of time but through the crucible of experiences that tested his character, skill, and resolve. Each encounter, whether in the streets of New York or the international arenas of table tennis, had contributed to a deeper understanding of himself and the world he navigated. His ambition remained undimmed, yet it was tempered with a cautious pragmatism, an understanding that cleverness alone was insufficient without strategy, timing, and an awareness of the human elements in play. Marty's journey was both internal and external, a constant negotiation between desire, skill, morality, and circumstance, all converging in the pursuit of his singular dream: excellence at the table, recognition on the world stage, and the fulfillment of his personal obligations. Marty's life in New York became a whirlwind of chaos and opportunity, each day presenting both challenges and small victories that tested his wit and resolve. After the Tokyo exhibition incident, he realized that the world of professional table tennis demanded more than skill. It required cunning, strategy, and the ability to navigate unexpected obstacles. Marty's mornings often began in his modest apartment, where the clutter of table tennis paddles, balls, and scattered notes reminded him of both his dreams and his past mistakes. The novelty balls he had once been so excited about still lingered in the back of his mind, a project half forgotten, but full of potential, a symbol of the entrepreneurial streak that always accompanied his competitive nature. Though he had faced embarrassment and setbacks, Marty's tenacity never wavered, and he began to see each obstacle as an opportunity to prove himself, not only to the world but also to himself. He would venture to the small clubs and community centers around the city, challenging local players, offering lessons to the eager, and sometimes hustling unsuspecting patrons for a few extra dollars. Each match, no matter how minor, was approached with the seriousness of a championship game. Marty knew that reputation mattered, and every win added to his credibility, while every loss taught him a valuable lesson about focus, strategy, and patience. He found himself employing clever tactics, sometimes bending the rules just enough to secure a win, yet always mindful not to cross lines that could ruin his growing reputation. His evenings were often spent with Wally, who had become more than just a friend. He was a partner in both mischief and survival. Together, they explored schemes to raise money, from organizing underground tournaments to devising hustles at local bowling alleys and cafes, always keeping one eye on the fines and fees imposed by the International Table Tennis Association. Despite the chaos, Marty's personal life began to demand attention in ways he could not ignore. Rachel, still pregnant with his child, became both a source of joy and stress. Marty's feelings for her were complicated, a mixture of affection, guilt, and the unspoken acknowledgement of the responsibilities awaiting him. He realized that his choices had consequences, and while he often acted impulsively, he was beginning to understand the weight of accountability. He tried to support Rachel in practical ways, ensuring that she had stability and care, while balancing the demands of his competitive pursuits. The dynamic between them was tense yet tender, moments of laughter and warmth punctuated by challenges and disagreements, reflecting the complexity of human relationships amidst the backdrop of ambition and chaos. The world of professional table tennis continued to be a demanding and unpredictable landscape. Marty's rivals were relentless, and each encounter on the table tested not only his skill but also his mental endurance. He observed and learned from opponents, studying their weaknesses, anticipating their moves, and refining his own style. The international scene, with its diverse array of players and styles, fascinated Marty, inspiring him to innovate, adapt, and expand his techniques. He often spent late nights practicing new spins, footwork, and serves, determined to stay ahead of the competition. The physical strain was considerable, but for Marty, the mental thrill of outsmarting an opponent and achieving a hard-fought victory was worth every bruise and sore muscle. Amidst the intensity of his professional and personal life, Marty never lost his sense of humor and mischief. He delighted in small pranks, witty comebacks, and clever improvisations that made him both a beloved and unpredictable figure in the table tennis community. Whether negotiating with venue owners, charming skeptical investors, or navigating the quirks of friends and rivals, Marty's charisma and ingenuity often turned potential disasters into opportunities. His days were filled with the constant balancing act of ambition, loyalty, risk, and survival. And through it all, he began to develop a deeper understanding of strategy, human nature, and the importance of timing both on and off the table. At times, Marty reflected on his journey with a sense of wonder and disbelief. The whirlwind of events, from small-town hustles to international exhibitions, had shaped him into a figure larger than life in his own eyes. Even if the world had yet to fully recognize his achievements, each challenge, each interaction, and each unexpected twist reinforced his resilience and sharpened his instincts. He began to plan for the future more deliberately, thinking not only about immediate victories, but also about establishing a lasting legacy in the sport he loved. While obstacles remained numerous and unpredictability was constant, Marty's determination and adaptability set him apart, fueling a relentless drive to succeed in both professional and personal arenas. Even with the pressures mounting, Marty's energy never waned. The streets of New York, with their constant rhythm, diverse characters, and endless opportunities for both sport and hustle, became a canvas upon which he painted his victories and learned from his mistakes. Whether hustling small games for extra cash, engaging in intense training sessions, or navigating the complexities of human relationships, every moment was a chance to sharpen his skills, test his limits, and grow as both a competitor and a person. Marty's relentless pursuit of mastery, coupled with his ingenuity and charm, ensured that he remained at the center of a dynamic, unpredictable, and exhilarating life, one that balanced ambition, risk, humor, and heart in equal measure. Marty's days in New York continued to spiral into a whirlwind of events that demanded both his cunning and his athleticism. The city, with its relentless energy and constant movement, served as both playground and battlefield for his ambitions. After the Tokyo exhibition, he found that reputation traveled faster than any shipment of novelty balls or whispers of victories in small clubs. People began recognizing him on the streets, some offering tips, others challenging him to spontaneous games, and a few attempting to swindle him. Marty had learned to navigate these encounters with a mix of charm, vigilance, and occasional misdirection. Every interaction carried potential, whether for training, networking, or earning a quick reward. The city became a chessboard, and Marty played with the careful strategy of someone who had learned that timing and observation could matter as much as skill. While the hustle of the city occupied most of his day, Marty's nights were reserved for careful practice. He often retreated to the dimly lit, cramped table tennis clubs, where the smell of worn wood and linoleum mixed with the echo of bouncing balls. Here, he experimented with spins, paddle angles, and serves, analyzing minute details that others might overlook. He kept meticulous notes, drawing diagrams, recording techniques, and noting tendencies of potential competitors. Marty's analytical side, once dormant under his natural charm and instinct, had flourished with necessity. Every missed shot, every lost rally, became a lesson etched into his memory, shaping a style that combined raw energy, improvisation, and strategic calculation. Wally often joined him, sometimes to practice, sometimes to offer comic relief, but always providing a stabilizing presence amid the chaos of Marty's relentless drive. The challenges of Marty's personal life intertwined with his ambitions, creating a complex web that tested his patience and emotional resilience. Rachel, still navigating the aftermath of previous entanglements and carrying Marty's child, remained a central figure in his life. Their relationship oscillated between moments of tenderness and tension. Marty, ever impulsive, sometimes acted without considering long-term consequences. Yet he began to realize that his responsibilities could not be ignored. Supporting Rachel through her pregnancy and preparing for the arrival of their child became an unspoken mission, one that demanded his attention even as he pursued his dreams on the table. Balancing this duality, personal responsibility and professional ambition, challenged Marty in ways that training and hustling never had. Each decision weighed heavily, forcing him to grow emotionally even as he honed his technical prowess. Amid these personal and professional entanglements, opportunities for advancement emerged in unexpected forms. Marty received word of a series of regional competitions, offering both prize money and prestige. The chance to travel again, to face new opponents, and to establish his name more firmly on the international stage excited him. Yet he approached these opportunities with caution. aware that previous missteps, his impulsive actions in London, the Tokyo exhibition, and the hustles around New York had consequences that could resurface at any moment. Each match became a test of patience, strategy, and endurance, with Marty measuring not just his skill, but also his judgment and temperament. Success required more than reflexes. It required observation, adaptation, and the ability to anticipate the psychology of opponents. Marty's encounters with rivals became increasingly complex. Players from diverse backgrounds, each with unique techniques and styles, tested his adaptability. He encountered opponents who used unconventional paddles, specialized spins, or psychological tactics aimed at unsettling him. In response, Marty refined his awareness, learning to adjust mid-game, manipulate his opponent's expectations, and occasionally employ subtle misdirection to gain an advantage. These experiences honed not only his technical skill, but also his understanding of human behavior, teaching him that victory often required insight into motives and patterns as much as physical prowess. Every encounter reinforced the notion that mastery of the game demanded both brain and body working in unison, a lesson Marty internalized with growing intensity. Alongside these trials, Marty's entrepreneurial streak found new outlets. He revisited the idea of novelty table tennis balls, redesigning packaging and creating limited editions that carried both flair and marketable appeal. He negotiated with local vendors, coordinated small-scale promotions, and tested the waters of public interest. While the project was not immediately profitable, it reignited Marty's sense of initiative and reminded him that innovation, much like skill in sport, required persistence, creativity, and calculated risk. He treated each small success as a foothold toward broader recognition, understanding that reputation and opportunity could build incrementally, one victory at a time, whether on the table or in the marketplace. The city itself became a character in Marty's journey, shaping him as much as he shaped it. From crowded subways and neon-lit streets to quiet parks and hidden alleyways, every corner offered lessons, distractions, or chance encounters. Marty learned to read the rhythms of the city, sensing the ebb and flow of energy, identifying patterns in human behavior, and navigating unpredictable social currents. Even in moments of solitude, he observed, planned, and refined his approach, realizing that life, like table tennis, was governed by movement, timing, and anticipation. Marty's growth was not limited to strategy or technical skill. Emotional maturity began to emerge as he faced increasingly complex scenarios. Betrayals, misunderstandings, and unanticipated consequences demanded reflection and adaptability. He started to consider long-term implications of choices, to weigh loyalty against ambition, and to recognize the nuance in relationships. The challenges of maintaining personal bonds while chasing professional excellence became central to his development, shaping a more thoughtful, strategic, and resilient version of himself. These lessons, often learned through trial and error, laid the foundation for future achievements, both on the table and in life. As the weeks passed, Marty's reputation solidified. Local clubs, regional tournaments, and informal circles of enthusiasts began to recognize him as a formidable competitor and shrewd tactician. Invitations to higher-profile matches arrived, offering the promise of both recognition and reward. Yet Marty remained cautious, aware that every opportunity carried hidden risks. He carefully selected challenges, weighing potential gains against the possibility of public failure or personal entanglement. This measured approach reflected a maturing mindset, one increasingly capable of balancing ambition with strategy, risk with caution, and personal growth with professional pursuit. Even as his focus sharpened, Marty retained the mischievous energy and humor that defined his character. He delighted in clever improvisation, playful banter, and small acts of subversion that kept both friends and rivals guessing. These traits, coupled with his growing expertise, made him a magnetic presence in the table tennis world and beyond. Marty's journey was a blend of relentless ambition, improvisational creativity, and emerging wisdom, a dynamic combination that ensured every day brought new challenges, lessons, and triumphs. Through all these experiences, Marty's bond with Wally remained a stabilizing force. The camaraderie, shared schemes, and mutual support allowed Marty to navigate the pressures of competition and personal responsibility. Together, they celebrated victories, commiserated over losses, and strategized for future opportunities, blending friendship, loyalty, and ambition into a partnership that amplified both their strengths. Marty's life, though chaotic and unpredictable, continued to unfold with purpose. Each game, encounter, and personal challenge contributed to a broader narrative of growth. resilience, and evolving mastery. He was no longer simply a talented player. He was a thinker, a strategist, and a figure navigating the delicate balance between skill, ambition, and humanity. The city, his friends, his rivals, and his responsibilities formed a network of pressures and opportunities that shaped every decision, guiding him toward future achievements that promised to be as complex and exhilarating as the journey itself. Marty's momentum carried him into a new phase of visibility, where his name no longer circulated only in cramped clubs or whispered corners of small tournaments. It began appearing in modest sports columns, local radio mentions, and flyers taped near community centers announcing upcoming matches. This sudden expansion of attention unsettled him at first. He had always thrived in semi-anonymity, where mistakes could be erased quietly and victories felt personal rather than public. Now, every serve, every miscalculated spin, and every emotional reaction was observed and sometimes discussed. Marty responded by tightening his discipline. He adjusted his routines, arriving earlier to venues, warming up longer, and mentally rehearsing scenarios before stepping near a table. The increased pressure forced him to confront weaknesses he once ignored, especially his tendency to become impulsive when frustrated. Instead of reacting emotionally, he trained himself to pause, breathe, and reset, understanding that composure was becoming as important as technique. Financial stability, though still fragile, began to improve. Small prize winnings, side hustles, and occasional sponsorship offers from local businesses provided Marty with a modest but growing sense of security. A sports shop agreed to display his novelty balls near the register, and a diner near his practice hall offered him free meals in exchange for promotional appearances. These arrangements were not glamorous, but they represented something more valuable: legitimacy. For the first time, Marty felt that his identity as a professional player was being acknowledged beyond informal circles. He took these opportunities seriously, attending community events, speaking politely to fans, and presenting himself with care. Though he retained his sharp wit and playful nature, he learned to control it, understanding that reputation was a fragile asset, built slowly and lost quickly. Rachel's presence in his life grew more significant as her pregnancy progressed. Doctor visits, quiet conversations about the future, and shared moments of vulnerability grounded Marty in reality. He could no longer treat life as a series of short-term gambles. Each choice now carried implications for another human being. This realization sometimes overwhelmed him, especially during long nights when exhaustion and anxiety collided. Yet these moments also deepened his sense of purpose. He began saving portions of his earnings, avoiding reckless bets, and resisting temptations that once seemed harmless. Responsibility reshaped his priorities, making him more cautious and reflective, without extinguishing his ambition. Training intensified as Marty prepared for a sequence of high-level regional tournaments. He studied footage of opponents, replaying matches frame by frame, identifying subtle habits and predictable patterns. Some players favored aggressive openings, others relied on defensive endurance, and a few specialized in deceptive serves. Marty constructed tailored strategies for each, designing sequences of shots intended to exploit weaknesses. This analytical approach transformed his game into something more precise and adaptable. He was no longer relying purely on instinct. He was building systems, anticipating reactions, and shaping rallies with intention. His confidence grew, not from arrogance, but from preparation. The competitive environment exposed Marty to diverse personalities. Some rivals were cordial, sharing tips and respecting skill. Others were openly antagonistic, attempting to intimidate or distract him. Marty learned to navigate both extremes. He responded to hostility with calm professionalism and embraced camaraderie without becoming complacent. These social dynamics sharpened his emotional intelligence, teaching him when to engage and when to remain distant. In this evolving ecosystem, reputation mattered as much as ranking, and Marty worked carefully to cultivate respect without sacrificing individuality. While he continued to serve as both confidant and counterbalance, their late-night conversations often revolved around strategy, finances, and personal doubts. Wally's grounded perspective helped Marty avoid overthinking and reminded him of their shared origins. Together, they reflected on past mistakes, extracting lessons rather than regrets. Their friendship, forged through adversity and improvisation, remained resilient amid changing circumstances. It provided Marty with emotional stability that competitive success alone could not supply. As tournament results improved, Marty received an invitation to join a traveling exhibition circuit. The offer promised exposure, consistent income, and encounters with elite players. yet it also required extended absences from home. Marty struggled with the decision, weighing professional advancement against personal responsibility. Discussions with Rachel were honest and difficult, marked by uncertainty and mutual concern. Ultimately, they agreed that long-term stability required short-term sacrifices. Marty accepted the invitation, committing himself fully, while promising to remain present through communication and planning. The traveling circuit introduced Marty to unfamiliar environments and cultural nuances. Each city presented new audiences, customs, and expectations. He adapted quickly, observing local etiquette, adjusting his presentation, and learning to connect with diverse crowds. These experiences broadened his worldview, challenging assumptions and expanding empathy. He began to see table tennis not merely as competition, but as a medium of cultural exchange, capable of bridging differences through shared enthusiasm. Performance on the circuit was inconsistent at first. Fatigue, unfamiliar conditions, and psychological pressure tested his resilience. Some matches ended in narrow defeats that lingered painfully in his memory. Instead of succumbing to frustration, Marty analyzed these losses with honesty. He consulted experienced players, sought feedback, and adjusted his routines. Gradually, his adaptability improved. Victories followed, not as sudden triumphs, but as cumulative outcomes of persistence and refinement. Media attention, though limited, began to shape narratives around him. Marty learned to manage interviews carefully, avoiding exaggerated claims and focusing on authenticity. He understood that narratives, once established, could influence opportunities and expectations. By presenting himself truthfully, he maintained credibility while allowing room for growth. Despite increasing responsibilities, Marty preserved moments of introspection. Long train rides and quiet hotel rooms became spaces for reflection. He contemplated identity, success, and purpose, questioning whether victory alone could define fulfillment. These reflections deepened his emotional awareness, reinforcing the importance of relationships, integrity, and self-respect. He recognized that ambition, unchecked, could become destructive, and he committed to balancing drive with empathy. As months passed, Marty's evolution became evident to those around him. He was more patient, more strategic, and more considerate. The impulsive hustler of earlier years had transformed into a disciplined competitor, navigating complexity with awareness. Yet traces of his original spontaneity remained, ensuring that creativity and passion continued to animate his play. This balance between structure and freedom became his defining characteristic, enabling him to thrive amid uncertainty. Through continuous effort, reflection, and adaptation, Marty positioned himself for greater challenges ahead. Each tournament, each conversation, and each personal decision contributed to a broader narrative of maturation. His journey was no longer driven solely by desire for recognition, but by a deeper commitment to growth, responsibility, and meaningful achievement. In this evolving chapter, Marty stood not as a finished product, but as a dynamic individual, learning to align talent with purpose, ambition with humanity, and success with integrity. Marty's return from the traveling circuit marked a subtle but important shift in how he viewed both competition and home. The months on the road had sharpened his instincts and expanded his perspective. Yet they had also made him deeply aware of the emotional cost of constant movement. Stepping back into familiar streets, hearing recognizable voices, and reconnecting with everyday routines brought a sense of grounding he had not realized he missed. He approached training with renewed focus, integrating techniques learned from diverse opponents while refining his own distinctive style. Instead of simply reacting to challenges, he now anticipated them, shaping matches with deliberate pacing and controlled aggression. This strategic maturity reflected a deeper understanding of the sport as a mental contest as much as a physical one. Rachel's pregnancy entered its final stages during this period, intensifying Marty's awareness of time and responsibility. Hospital visits, late-night discussions about parenting, and practical planning for the future became regular parts of his schedule. These moments, though emotionally demanding, strengthened their bond. Marty learned to listen more than he spoke, to consider consequences before acting, and to prioritize stability over impulsive opportunity. His evolving sense of accountability influenced his public demeanor as well. Fans and fellow players noticed a calmer presence, a man who carried pressure quietly, rather than theatrically. Opportunities continued to emerge, including invitations to higher-level invitational tournaments that attracted international attention. Marty approached these events with humility, recognizing that visibility could magnify both strengths and mistakes. He invested additional time in preparation, working with experienced coaches and sports psychologists to enhance concentration and resilience. Visualization exercises, breathing techniques, and structured recovery routines became integral to his regimen. These practices helped him maintain equilibrium during high-stakes moments, reducing anxiety and enhancing performance consistency. Financial management became another area of personal growth. With guidance from acquaintances in the business community, Marty established basic savings plans and negotiated fair contracts. He resisted offers that promised quick money at the expense of long-term credibility. This restraint was difficult, especially given his earlier habit of chasing immediate rewards. Yet, experience had taught him that sustainable success required patience and foresight. Gradually, he built a modest but dependable financial foundation that supported both his career and his emerging family life. Competition at elite levels exposed Marty to sophisticated tactical systems. Players employed complex serve patterns, deceptive footwork, and psychological ploys designed to unsettle opponents. Marty responded by expanding his analytical toolkit. He documented matches meticulously, noting subtle cues and recurring tendencies. Over time, this methodical approach enabled him to adapt rapidly mid-game, shifting strategies with precision. His adaptability became a hallmark, earning respect from rivals who recognized his intellectual engagement with the sport. Wally remained a constant presence, offering perspective and humor during stressful periods. Their conversations, often punctuated by laughter and candid honesty, served as emotional anchors. Wally reminded Marty of their shared history, reinforcing humility and gratitude. This friendship counterbalanced professional pressures, ensuring that success did not isolate him emotionally. As Rachel's due date approached, Marty faced a critical choice regarding an extended overseas tour. The opportunity promised significant exposure, but required prolonged absence. After careful reflection and discussion, Marty declined, prioritizing family over ambition. This decision, though difficult, affirmed his evolving values. He communicated openly with organizers, preserving relationships while asserting personal boundaries. This assertiveness enhanced his reputation as a principled professional. The birth of their child transformed Marty's worldview profoundly. Holding his newborn son, he experienced a convergence of vulnerability and determination. The responsibility of shaping another life intensified his commitment to integrity and perseverance. Training sessions now carried renewed meaning, representing not only personal aspiration, but provision and example. This emotional shift infused his play with deeper purpose, visible in his heightened focus and composure. Public perception gradually evolved, framing Marty as both a skilled competitor and a devoted family man. Media narratives highlighted his balance between ambition and responsibility. Marty engaged thoughtfully with this image, neither exploiting nor rejecting it. He recognized that authenticity remained essential, and he resisted the temptation to perform a persona inconsistent with reality. Challenges persisted, including injuries, unexpected defeats, and periods of self-doubt. Yet Marty confronted these obstacles with resilience cultivated through experience. He sought medical care promptly, embraced rehabilitation patiently, and reframed setbacks as opportunities for learning. This adaptive mindset sustained momentum during difficult phases. Community involvement became increasingly meaningful. Marty volunteered at youth training programs, sharing technical knowledge and personal insights. Teaching reinforced his own understanding, while nurturing future talent. These interactions provided emotional fulfillment beyond competitive success, reminding him of sport's capacity to inspire and connect. Through continuous refinement of skill, values, and relationships, Marty entered a phase of integrated growth. His journey, shaped by discipline and empathy, demonstrated that excellence arises not from isolated ambition, but from harmonizing passion with purpose and perseverance with compassion. Marty's life entered a quieter, yet more demanding rhythm after the birth of his son, a phase where every hour seemed divided between professional discipline and personal devotion. Early mornings often began with feeding routines and gentle rocking, followed by intense training sessions that required complete physical and mental engagement. This contrast between tenderness and competitiveness reshaped his emotional landscape. He learned to transition smoothly from family intimacy to public performance, carrying the emotional warmth of home into high-pressure environments. Rather than draining his energy, this dual responsibility strengthened his resilience, giving him a deeper reservoir of motivation. As his reputation stabilized, sponsors and organizers approached him with long-term partnerships that emphasized reliability over spectacle. Marty evaluated each proposal carefully, consulting advisors and considering how commitments might affect family life. He favored arrangements that allowed flexibility, avoiding schedules that demanded constant travel. This selective approach reflected his commitment to sustainable success rather than short-lived prominence. It also reinforced trust within the professional community, as partners recognized his consistency and ethical standards. Technically, Marty continued refining his style. He integrated advanced biomechanics into training, focusing on joint alignment, muscle balance, and injury prevention. Collaboration with physiotherapists and performance analysts improved efficiency of movement, reducing fatigue and extending endurance. His serves gained subtle variation, his footwork became more economical, and his recovery between rallies improved noticeably. Psychologically, Marty faced new forms of pressure. Expectations from fans, sponsors, and media intensified as he maintained high performance. He addressed this by cultivating mindfulness practices and structured reflection sessions. Journaling after matches allowed him to process emotions and identify patterns of thought that influenced behavior. Over time, this habit enhanced self-awareness, enabling him to manage stress proactively rather than reactively. Rachel pursued her own aspirations during this period, returning to academic studies and professional development. Marty supported her ambitions, coordinating schedules and sharing domestic responsibilities. Their partnership evolved into a collaborative system grounded in mutual respect. Decision-making became more transparent, reducing conflict and strengthening trust. This balanced relationship provided emotional stability that reinforced Marty's capacity to perform consistently. International competition reintroduced Marty to diverse playing philosophies. Exposure to European defensive strategies and Asian speed-oriented systems broadened his tactical repertoire. He embraced these contrasts, experimenting with hybrid tactics that combine precision with adaptability. Opponents found it increasingly difficult to predict his approach, enhancing strategic advantage. Community recognition expanded beyond sport. Marty was invited to speak at educational institutions and cultural events, sharing insights on perseverance and ethical leadership. These engagements reinforced his sense of social responsibility. He emphasized discipline, humility, and resilience, framing success as a collective endeavor rather than individual conquest. Such perspectives resonated widely, extending his influence into broader civic spheres. Financial stability enabled strategic investments in training facilities and youth programs. Marty collaborated with local organizations to establish accessible spaces for aspiring athletes. These initiatives reflected his commitment to nurturing inclusive opportunities. By reinvesting resources into community development, he created a legacy that transcended personal accolades. Injuries and recovery remained ongoing concerns. Minor setbacks tested patience, but Marty adhered rigorously to medical guidance. He prioritized long-term health over immediate competition, recognizing that sustainable performance depended on bodily integrity. This disciplined approach minimized chronic issues and extended career longevity. As seasons progressed, Marty's identity shifted from rising contender to established leader. Younger players sought mentorship, and he offered guidance without condescension. He emphasized adaptability, ethical conduct, and emotional intelligence, shaping a culture of respect and collaboration. Through mentorship, Marty reinforced his own principles while contributing to the sport's future. Balancing ambition with responsibility, Marty exemplified integrated professionalism. Each phase of growth, though demanding, deepened his sense of purpose and reinforced commitment to both family and sport. Marty entered this stage of his life with a calm confidence that only years of discipline and self-reflection could produce. Where once he had relied on instinct and raw ambition, he now operated through measured decisions and carefully structured routines. His mornings began with light stretching and controlled breathing exercises, preparing both body and mind for the day ahead. Training sessions were shorter but more focused, emphasizing precision rather than volume. This evolution allowed him to maintain peak performance without exhausting his physical reserves. His relationship with competition also matured. Victories no longer fueled ego, and defeats no longer crushed his spirit. Instead, each match became a source of data and personal insight. Marty reviewed recordings with analytical attention, noting patterns in his reactions, timing, and strategic choices. These reviews transformed setbacks into opportunities for growth, reinforcing his commitment to continuous improvement. At home, Marty and Rachel established traditions that grounded their family life. Weekend walks, shared meals, and quiet evenings fostered emotional security for their child. Marty remained present despite professional demands, refusing to let fame distance him from personal responsibilities. This balance nurtured trust and emotional resilience within the household. Public perception of Marty shifted noticeably. Media narratives framed him as a symbol of stability and integrity within the sport. Interviews focused less on rivalry and more on leadership, mentorship, and social contribution. Marty navigated this attention thoughtfully, avoiding sensationalism and emphasizing collective achievement. His consistent humility strengthened public respect and professional credibility. Technological advancements influenced training methodologies during this period. Marty collaborated with data scientists to analyze performance metrics, including reaction time, stroke efficiency, and energy expenditure. These insights refined tactical planning and personalized conditioning programs. Integrating technology enhanced competitiveness while preserving physical well-being. Professional networks expanded as Marty engaged with international federations and athlete advocacy groups. He participated in policy discussions addressing fair compensation, health protections, and youth development. This involvement reflected his commitment to ethical progress within the sport. By contributing to governance structures, he helped shape sustainable frameworks for future generations. Periods of self-doubt occasionally surfaced, particularly when younger athletes displayed remarkable speed and agility. Marty confronted these insecurities through honest reflection and adaptive training. He emphasized strategic depth and psychological composure, leveraging experience to offset physical disparities. This adaptability maintained relevance in an evolving competitive landscape. Financial management became increasingly strategic. Marty diversified investments and supported educational funds for aspiring players. These efforts aimed to reduce barriers to entry and promote social mobility through sport. Financial foresight ensured stability for his family and facilitated long-term philanthropic initiatives. International tours grew more selective. Marty prioritized tournaments aligned with personal values and developmental goals. This approach reduced burnout and preserved enthusiasm. Each chosen event carried clear purpose, reinforcing motivation and professional integrity. Mentorship reached deeper levels during this phase. Marty hosted training workshops and small group seminars, fostering open dialogue and skill exchange. Younger athletes valued his transparency and empathy. Through these interactions, Marty reinforced his role as a custodian of tradition and innovation. Personal reflection intensified. Marty revisited early ambitions, recognizing how initial dreams had transformed into broader commitments. Success was no longer defined by rankings alone, but by contribution, stability, and ethical leadership. This redefinition strengthened internal motivation and emotional equilibrium. The synthesis of experience, adaptability, and compassion characterized Marty's identity at this stage. His journey demonstrated that maturity in sport extends beyond physical mastery to encompass emotional intelligence, social responsibility, and sustained